So today's class will be on characteristics of collective bargaining. In my last class, we have discussed about the various objectives of the collective bargaining. Plus, we have discussed about the definition of the collective bargaining, that what exactly the collective bargaining means, and we have also discussed about that how this collective bargaining came into the concept of that collective bargaining came into existence. We have discussed about the various agitations that already held in previous histories in America and other countries, European countries, and from where this particular concept then came into existence. Now, today's class is going to be have over what exactly we have, what exactly are the various characteristics of the collective bargaining. So, the first point is collective here. It means that collective bargaining, the first word is there, collective. So what exactly it's mean? Collective bargaining is a two-way group process where the employers representatives and employees representatives sit together and to negotiate the terms of employment. So if collective is why it is considered to be characteristic, because if the collective efforts will not be there, if both the parties will not come together to solve any issues, then collective bargaining is not going to not going to possible to came into existence, right? So that is the reason why that collective is so much important here, the word, because it tells us that a combined effort of two parties for solving a common goal, and that is the reason here why they have took it the first point, first characteristic of the collective bargaining. So here what happened? The employers representatives and the employers representatives both have that willingness to come together and negotiate over the terms of employment and then solve the issues. So that is why the collective is the first and the foremost characteristics of the collective bargaining. Then strength is there. Both the parties in collective bargaining are strong and equal. So why they have written this statistic here? Because that is the reason why both the parties comes together. If one of the party is not that much of strength or not that much of power over the other, then it's quite obvious that one party is trying to uh, fulfill their own demands. They are not going to negotiate with the another party because they already haven't feel over that kind of strongness over the other party, right? So if both the parties have that kind of strength that no one have that kind of power to take on over the others, then only it is possible that both the parties will collectively came together and going to solve the issues, right? So that is also the important point here, that is strength, and both the parties should have the kind of strength that forces the other party to come together to solve the issue through negotiation, right? Then voluntarily, both the parties come to the negotiation table voluntarily in order to go in particular negotiation. It is based on discussion, mutual trust, and understanding. So if you have um, that strength also, and if you don't have that feel to voluntarily invite the other party or voluntarily trying to negotiate with the other party for a particular issue, then also collective bargaining will not be possible. So in this case, both the party have should that kind of willingness to come together and to solve the issues, right? And when these parties will come together and when these parties have that kind of willingness to negotiate with each other, then what happens, it should be based on certain discussions. Then mutual trust is very important because both the parties have that kind of trust over each other that both the parties are interested to solve the problem. And then understanding is also important, right? Then formal. It is a formal process in which certain employment related issues are to be regulated at national organization and workplace level, right? So that is also one of the important issue here, and one of the important fact, collective bargaining, because each and every activity of collective bargaining is going to be noted down in black and white, right? It is not like now we are going to have just sit together and you just did an informal talks or informal negotiation. It's not like that. Each and every activity of collective bargaining is a formal process. Everything is going to be noted down in black and white, and everything is already planned earlier before starting that negotiation with each other. Every activity of that particular negotiation or that kind of meeting is already laid down somewhere in a documentation, right? So that is why it's called it's a formal process in which certain employment related issues are to be regulated, right? And other issues also should be have considered under this particular process, like national, what exactly the problem or issues on national level, what are the issues that we all have to be solved on organizational level, and what is going to be improved over the workplace. So every activity of this collective bargaining is a kind of formal process. Nothing is there a kind of informal activity, right? Or process. Then flexible. It is flexible and continuous process and not fixed or static. Why that flexibility is important in collective bargaining? Because collective bargaining is a kind of negotiation type of activity where both the parties came together. They have going to solve certain issues, and both the parties should have a certain common, you can say, interest over that issue, so that they can able to solve the problem and they can combinedly reach to the common goal, right? So in that case, both the parties should have to sacrifice something that they want to attain from that particular meeting. If both the parties have that kind of willingness, or if they are ready to sacrifice for the benefit of others, if both the parties have that kind of attitude, then only the flexibility is possible. And if the flexibility will not be there, then it is quite obvious that it could not be possible for both the parties to solve the issue. So collective bargaining is a flexible and continuous process and not fixed or static. Because if you're going to have fixed your attitude, if you're going to have fixed over certain issues, that I have to have need this thing, I have to have increase the wages of the workers on certain percentage, then it is not possible to 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 solve certain issues and to proceed for the collective bargaining process, right? So flexibility is the important part here. Then improvement is there. Improvement, it is a method to improve the employer-employees relation in organization and resolve management and employees conflicts. So the major characteristic of the collective bargaining is what? Something is going to have improved. So when both the parties came together, when both they have that kind of willingness to negotiate with each other to solve certain issue, then what happened? Employer-employee relation is definitely going to improve, because both are considering the different points of each other. Both are considering the problems of each other. So when they are both considering each other's benefits, then definitely the relation is going to improve and the issue is going to be resolved, right? And the conflict with the employees is definitely going to have minimizes, because both the parties is going to have improve over certain issues, and due to that, definitely the relation is going to improve. And when the relation is going to have improved, then definitely the employees conflicts is going to have reduced and improved, right? Now next one, representation. Collective bargaining is definitely required a representation, because for the groups it's not possible to sit together and collectively bargain over certain issues, right? So in that process is in that condition, you need a representation from both the parties. Normally the unions have appointed certain people, or sorry, certain representation to represent themselves in that particular collective bargaining process, right? It is already written here. Collective bargaining is between the representatives of employees and management. The management does not directly deal with the employees, right? They are never directly deal with the employees. They always deal with the certain representation of the employees, right? It carries negotiations with the representatives, executives of unions and associations. So this is the major part here, that is called representation. Then another one is dynamic. Yes, it's a dynamic process. It's continuously need to change themselves, because whatever happening right now, whatever the issues you have already have solved, it doesn't mean that that issues will not going to be raised in the future. Right? It's definitely going to be have raised in the future with certain different phases. Right. In that case, you have that kind of, you can say, uh, power, or you can have that kind of, can say, ability to understand the new challenges, and you can able to cope up with it with certain period of time. Like the collective bargaining is a dynamic, yes, that go on changing over a period and grows and expand the way of agreement, right? The way of implementation and the way of discussion. So whatever the through collective bargaining, whatever the issues you are going to have solved, it's definitely going to have improved, and it's going to have grow and expand in the future also. And the major point is what here, the way you are going to have implement that particular solutions of the problem, that also the kind of, you can say, issue in the organization, whether whatever we have discussed is implemented or not, that is also one of the kind of issues that management is normally has to consider. And the way they are discussing with each other, that is also going to have changed based on what kind of implementation process are there that management has adopted to implement that kind of resolve issues, right? Then continuous, yes, collective bargaining is continuous and begins with agreement. Whenever the collective bargaining is going to have start, and whenever the both the parties are trying to resolve any issue, the first is what they are all they are going to be have, um, you can say, started with the certain agreement that they both have agreed upon certain points, and then that points is going to be mentioned under the agreement, and then that agreement is going to have implemented. And then if something is going to be happen that is not implementing whatever it is written in the agreement, then again it is a point of negotiation, then further negotiations will be there, right? So this is all about the characteristic. Then bipartite process is also there. That means that the employed and employees representative negotiate directly face to face across the table. So no need to discussion over that point, because it's clearly mentioned that it means that it's a process where both the parties came together and both the parties are negotiating with each other in a across the table face to face, right? Then types of bargaining. Now, another topic is types of bargaining. In this topic, we're going to have discussed over different types of bargaining, but because of certain issues related to our right now exams and all, I'm going to have discussed this topic after discussing with you people again in my next class, right? So for today, it's I'm going to have just stop that class only after discussing the characteristics of the collective bargaining. So I'm not going to have discussed, but I just want to revise you people again about our last points, where we have discussed about the collective bargaining meaning, what exactly it means. The concept of collective bargaining was introduced very late in the India, as trade unions were found only in 20th century. The concept of collective bargaining in India, it came in 1962. The phrase collective bargaining is said to be coined by the Sydney and Webb and Great Britain, and it is made up from two words: collective, which means that group, yes, definitely, and then bargaining, which means the proposal and counter proposal. So whatever the groups they have made in this collective bargaining, they have put it certain proposals across the table with each of the parties, right? So it is a process in which the representatives of labor organizations and the representatives of the business organizations will meet and attempt to negotiate a contract or agreements, right, which specify the nature of employer union relationship. So it's very although it's quite easy for us to understand this concept, but collective bargaining in itself, it's a process very typical one, because it's difficult for the organizations to have uh, combinedly came together or for certain issues, and then resolve that issues in the form of certain solutions, and that too that is going to be have contracted with each other in the form of agreement, right? And that agreement is again going to have implement in the future. That is also one of the challenges for the organizations and the unions, whether whatever we have resolved, whatever we have agreemented, whether it is implemented in the future or not. So this is overall about the collective bargaining. So for today's class, I think it's sufficient because of this technical issues, and we will meet you in our next class with certain more topics of this unit related to collective bargaining. Okay.